Hey everyone, it's James Martin here. Welcome back to another brand new video on my YouTube channel. I'm here with a very special colleague and friend of mine, Carole Schaffer from Sugar Sea Media. Carole's a longtime friend of mine. She works on tons of different TV shows, talk shows, reality TV shows, all kinds of stuff. Huge body of work. And she's with us today. Thank you so much, Carole, for joining.
It's really nice to see you, James. Thanks so much for having me.
For sure. So why don't you tell us a bit about you? What's your background?
Well, I'm self-learned. So I got into this by accident. So in my prior work life, I had a vintage clothing business. And I started doing video for that business to brand myself. That business, long story short, went away, and I just kind of threw myself into filmmaking, which was a very strange thing for someone who had no experience. And, you know, I bought a camera, I bought a Mac, and I practiced. That's how I started, really.
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, you also went not just from practicing by yourself, but you eventually opened up your own videography company. You started doing that for everyone else.
Absolutely. You know, the funny thing is, as I was practicing, I had a friend of mine that I went to, I think it was a networking meeting, and he said, I need someone to shoot the meeting. And then he said, I need you to have a business so that I can write this off. So I, on the spot, thought of the name, which was kind of in the previous name of my other business. So it was Sugar Productions, and I was a business that day. And from then on, I was locally in Barrie, shooting pretty much everything. I was going to events. I was going to all kinds of things. You know, everybody wanted to, and of course, this is back in 2000 and I would say 2000 and, oh dear, 10, 11, something like that. So, you know, there wasn't a lot of video on the internet at that time. You know, it really was kind of just picking up. So everybody wanted video, and I was kind of a cheap alternative, if you will. So I'm not now. Just saying. But yeah, that's kind of how I started. And honestly, my favorite things were not so much, I mean, I love doing client stuff. I really did, because I got to meet some really great people and really great businesses, and I networked with a lot of people. But my favorite thing was a reality show and the video blogging. Like, video blogging for me was like, I get to tell you what I really love and I get to play around with it. So and then the reality TV was, I get to show you through other people what I really love. So that, you know what, I just dove in because nobody told me I couldn't.
Let's talk about how you actually got started with talk shows and reality TV. Where did that begin, and why did you want to get into it?
I'm going to start with my first show, which was Living the Life TV, which is an obscure little show that I just decided I wanted to do because I had been living in Barrie for a really long time, and I didn't feel like enough people knew that there was a lot of stuff to do, at least in the you know, the area, if you will. And I only did 4 episodes, but you know, I had 2 hosts, and we did some really fun stuff. We went to Horseshoe Valley, and even my daughter appeared on one of the shows because, well, Tyler couldn't make it one day. So it's like, and that's kind of how people got on my shows. It's like, usually my friends and family. And so they, so that was pretty much how it went. We did it over a full summer. I edited it all. So that's the very start. It didn't really go anywhere, but I was so proud of it. You know, it was exciting to do. It was fun to do. I enjoyed it very much so.
And I mean, I think especially for content creators, but especially video creators, and something that I think a lot of people can observe from us as video creators is that we really do feel proud when we make something, when we make a video, when we make a show. That's like, holy cow, it's real, it's tangible, that's something I just made, or it's something you just made.
Yes, and James, I have to ask you, when you make something, is it because, and I know why I make it. Can I ask you why you make yours? Like why the content?
That's a good question. I mean, I keep saying that I love making an experience for other people, but like what I mean by that is there's something where when I put out a video and I see someone and their mouth is wide open, or they're crying, or they're laughing, or they're just staring and just like, wow, or laughing, or whichever, that makes me feel really, really good, because I know that I just created some sort of an impact. And that, I mean, I also love movies. Like, obviously, I come from a background of filmmaking. I know what movies have done for me, where I cry, laugh, get different feelings. And so I love doing the same thing to other people. To me, it's you're making a change in someone else's life, even if it's just for half an hour, 2 minutes, an hour and a half, whichever. You are making a difference.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. That's exactly right. I want them to feel how I've felt. I want them to experience my experience. That sounds very similar to a lot of people that I've spoken to that have been creators. It's just this, I want you to feel something. And so I want to inform them, right? So I want that to be kind of the, I'm not an educator, I'm not a teacher, but hey, I heard something. I want to tell you about it. And I want them to say, oh, I never heard that before. So I want this to feel like I got something out of this. And at the same time, I want them to laugh, or I want them to, and for me, I like the laughter part, right? I
Yeah.
like to be amused and entertained. And so I would love that if anybody came away from what I was doing and was entertained and educated, then I'm happy.
Exactly. I've also noticed that there's a real connection in when you when you go to somewhere else and you take that into a video. Like, I remember watching Barry Fit, and I watched one of your episodes where you went to a pole studio and then you went to a farm, and like, you're going to a farm. I've never been to that one particular farm, and seeing all that, but the fact that you capture it on camera, it makes you feel like you're there as well. When I talk to corporate clients, or even as filmmakers, I think travel vlogs is an excellent example of what video can do in the 21st century.
And Barry Fit. So how I got to Barry Fit was a complete fluke. I think my friend Bob Minhas.
Mm-hmm.
He and I had started a video blog about, I would say, 3 years prior to that, before the concept of Barry Fit came up. And so that video blog, he left after a year. The first video blog was called Bob and Sugar's Belly Blast blog. I just cringe at the name now. I don't know what you were thinking, and so funny enough, those are all on Sugar Coated TV as well. So if you ever feel like you want to go and have a, oh my goodness, laugh. But yeah, after he left, I started to have friends on the show, and then I started interviewing people, and that was kind of really fun, right? I really enjoyed hearing about other people's stuff. I started not wanting to hear my own speaking anymore. So I was at a Barry Chamber meeting, and my friend brought over a new member, and it turned out that new member was a new producer over at 5TV who needed producers, community producers. And he's like, hey, we have basically nobody. Come and, give us a hand. And I'm like, of course, I've been on camera. I have shot, my first show, real introduction to TV land and what people expect was just shocking. It's so much work. Mm. It is just, they need, now my first season of Barry Fit was co-produced by 5TV. And Billy Dunlop, I met him at that time. He edited everything. And and Dave Sullivan, he was my producer at 5TV1. And they were fantastic, and they helped me because I had to host. And I did not realize, because I'd never been on camera by myself, I didn't realize how petrified I was to talk to the camera. So my first show that I met Dave at the Tai Chi studio, and I was going to do the introduction, and I had all my notes and I had it on a clipboard, and I basically memorized it because I didn't know how to be on camera myself. I don't talk well to the camera by myself if I'm live. And so what happened was I left my clipboard at home. I was so frazzled. I was up there and petrified. Like, I was petrified. And until I started doing the activity and talking to somebody else, which was Rod, I was a mess. I was an absolute mess, and I never forgot my clipboard again. Let me tell you, never again. So it was harrowing for me. I was, and to this day, I am you will find not more prepared person on camera than me. I note everything. I make sure everything is near me, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that was my very first. There was so much to do when there was a traditional broadcast involved. So many people, so many processes that I didn't know, that I learned, that really helped me a lot, both in editing and in pitching and knowing format and listening to somebody who had done it for 25 years in a traditional broadcast scenario. I learned so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd love to talk to you about how you went along about producing the shows. I first want to start off with, so how do you come up with the concepts? Where do you start?
My concepts for all of my shows have all stemmed from me. So I'll give you an example. So Living the Life TV, I've already told you. So I wanted everybody to kind of know what to do in the Barrie area, which basically became what Barrie Fit was about as well. Messages from above and beyond came from me. When I was young and in my 20s, not so long ago, I remember this show that I used to watch, this obscure psychic show that she would have people in her apartment and she would do the readings, and then afterwards, so I just borrowed the concept and I made it my own, and that's how I came up with those concepts. And as far as Third Eye View, I have spent probably 30 years researching paranormal and extra normal, if you will. For me, it's just normal. So I wanted to introduce people to that and make it a mainstream thing. So I do cheat. It all comes from me. I don't generally do anything that's outside of my own experiences, if you will. It's so much easier to draw on and interest, right? Like, when you're interested in something, you will research the heck of it. And that's what I did. And that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, what I love so much about what you just said too, and I think that's so important of any artist and creator, is focus on the stuff that you love and that you're passionate about. Yeah. So you mentioned about the Barrie area, about being fit, about the paranormal and all the psychiatric, mental activities and stuff like that. I find that so incredible and so important.
I really, really enjoyed it. And years ago, probably in 2013, I shot an event called Fighters for Fighters, and it was a charity event with local celebrities, but I got to train alongside of those local celebrities. That was kind of the terms of my agreement for shooting. So it was wonderful. Like I got to, really train with an MMA star. So it was a really, really cool experience. So I just wanted to bring those experiences, those experiences that I just hoped somebody else would have them.
For sure. So once you have that concept, what would be the next steps? How do you plan the shoot? How does that all go together?
So much planning. So the first part was, and now it was different for Berry Fit because Berry Fit was really a collaborative effort. The people at Bell, they created the graphics. Dave Sullivan was my shooter and Billy was my editor. So all I had to do was focus on, I just had to arrange all of the meetings. I had to suss out the people who I would be talking to. I was supposed to get, sponsorship, but the only sponsorship I got was in kind. So I got some sponsorship that helped me get ready for the show. My hair was a sponsorship. There was a few more things. I had some clothing sponsorship. So, I was happy to have that, but as I'll let you know a little bit later, that is something that I would heavily stress that you set up beforehand. You have an idea of who you need to get for sponsors and if they are interested and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so the next step was really scripting, getting everything into a template, getting the concept done, getting the branding right, the guests scheduled, the host prepped, like the team assembled was for 5TV1 was them. There were so many steps that happened at the same time, but honestly, it really was, I guess, just formulating the show, really getting it right in my mind so that I could take the next steps and start writing the scripts and stuff like that.
Right. It definitely sounded like, because you mentioned stuff like, oh, I need to make sure I have my concept together. And I mean, what kind of amazed me in a bit is that, I mean, I don't know about you, for me, when I have an idea of, it could be a show, it could be a movie project, or even nowadays with YouTube, I'm trying to experiment with different vlogging and whatever. It's easy for me to come up with an idea. It's like, okay, I'll just quickly do this, boom, boom, boom. Because I know, like, I can take care of all that other things. But what's interesting is when you work with a broadcasting company, it's not so much about, do you know what you're doing? It's making sure that everyone else knows exactly what they're trying to get across too.
Right. So that's the part where it really, as a community producer, it really was all on me. I was the one to come up with the full template. Like I had to pitch them first what the show, the syllabus of the show, the summary of the show. I had to, before we even started shooting or they even accepted me, I had to go to different venues and I had to ask them, would you participate in the show if it lived? And they, and you had to get the okay before you even submitted that pitch. So that was my, I had that all, the ideas all ready before I even started. I had to know how much I wanted for the show. I had to know what my rules were going to be and their rules were going to be, because that determined, how much time they were going to take to do it. And yeah, it was a lot of work, but you know what, that the learning curve was absolutely fantastic. And quite frankly, by the time you're finished prepping, that's the best part, is that what you're doing when you're walking in, rather than I'm not really sure, so, but after that process was done, after it was accepted, and after I got everything finished, my producer and I would meet, and he would ask me, do you know what it's going to be like, what it's going to be about? And he would dig at me. So what, like, no, really, like, what do you want to get across? And how do you want to feel? And, you know, how do you want to come about? Right? That's a really big one. How do you want to come off on this? And so he really, at the time, it felt really hard because he pushed me, because I'd never done it before, you know? So I would say it once and say, oh, that must be fun. Okay. And he's like, we're doing it again. And so we did it again a lot. Dave, God help him. he made me better.
As I was watching The Very Fit, it reminded me of how when I'm producing a lot of my own projects, and especially a lot of YouTube videos, I'm trying to work with different brands and different companies to try and work out different sponsorships. The biggest worry that I always have is if something, God forbid, if something goes wrong. Because I mean, it's very magical when you have a sponsor, like if it's actual advert and a sponsor in your video or whichever, or in your case, if they're sponsoring your hair and your makeup and letting you go into location and all that stuff. But my concern is what happens if something didn't go so well. Like, let's say, God forbid, that when they were doing your hair that they messed up, or if you're getting a sponsor from a brand that you actually don't trust, then how do you usually work around that?
Well, I haven't had that experience. And quite frankly, when I was working with 5TV1, they actually paid me. So they paid me for my episodes for season 1 and 2. And depending on how much I did, they gave me more. And so as far as what do you do with sponsors that may go awry, I got contracts with my sponsors, number one. And quite frankly, had something happened with my hair, because that can happen when you're going blonde, they would have been doing it for free and fixing it, right? So my contract, so that's another thing I would really highly suggest, is making sure that even if you've got an in-kind sponsorship, an agreement, if you will, put that in writing so all the parties know what's expected of them. And that way, you know what happens if something goes awry. They know what happens if something goes awry. And they can, they understand what their exposure is. My sponsors would get their logo at the end of my show. I couldn't mention them during the show, but I could put their logos in at the end. And, that was their bonus, if you will. That's why
Right.
they did it. And because it was on 5TV1. So that was, but I would say, what happens if you go awry? Well, have a contract. And if the contract says this, then do that.
Right. So I'm just thinking, I guess, to even be more detailed about that. So in that agreement, I guess you would mention that it is expected that everyone, or technically both parties, perform their services and their duties to the best of their abilities, and they're not cutting back.
That's correct. Yes. Everybody has the right expectation. And what you say you're going to do, you do. And that means you as well. If you say, and for me, not only did I give them logos at the end, but I gave them social media shout outs. So I would take pictures when I would go there, and I would tout their stuff. I would share their stuff. And so it was a value add, if you will. Now, I have to tell you, if you were going to do this a different way, and quite honestly, while I love my local businesses that I worked with, the local businesses are often weary. If they're weary of giving things, and even if it's for free, I find that relying on them to be the sponsor if you're asking for money is not always a good thing. They're tapped out, quite frankly. And and you would understand. So, there's up and comings in this city, and everybody kind of tackles the same businesses. So what I suggest, if you're going to bootstrap something, if you're going to do it yourself and self-distribute and get sponsorships and whatnot, I would suggest then going and having a streaming broadcast that you have an agreement with. I had an agreement with E360 TV. I found them through a friend. They're fantastic, but they're one of a whole whack of streaming channels that is, they're really great little channel, and they're out of San Francisco, but they take care of all of the ad stuff, right? So you don't you bring the sponsors. If you get sponsors that along the way that really love your stuff and they want to buy ads, at least they get value from their ads, and you send it to the broadcast streamer. And these guys had a whole back end of how to monetize ads. They were phenomenal. So if I was to do this again, I would work it that way. I would get sponsors that that could get ad revenue or ad base there, right? So I don't think I would run around and try to get ads locally, sponsors locally. It just doesn't make sense. If they don't have usually they don't have the interest or the budget for that kind of stuff. And I was looking around to sell messages after I made it. And I also came across the ability to be able to buy airtime on I think it was CTV and checks. So you could buy airtime. So for 10 episodes, it was at the time, I don't know what it is now, but at the time it was about $15,000 to be able to air 10 episodes. So it's about $1,500 each. Now, in that time, if you partnered with somebody that was good at sales, good at ad, those are things that traditionally local people are more likely to value, is traditional broadcasting. So if you were going to do that, buy the space. You've got lots of spots that you can sell, 60 second, 30 second, and 15 second. I think that was the slots that you could do. And depending on what people could buy, you could pay for your space, right? You could pay to get your stuff made.
Exactly. And I mean, you also made a very important point about kind of reverse engineering, where you look at your distribution, you look at the audience you're going to be developing. So obviously you were going to be live on TV, not just on the internet, but live on TV. There was going to be a legitimate big audience watching the show, and then that can become value to your sponsors.
If I was to do this again, I would do it that way. I would find out where I would be streaming. I would make connections with people streaming or airing, if you will. And that means YouTube too, because it's got its own set of criteria that make it successful as well. But I would contact those people and, first, and quite honestly, now that I've been doing this for a little while, I know what their trends are. But now, because I even approached, I tell you, you do what you've got to do to to find out if you can get your stuff aired. So I spoke to the head of broadcast at Chorus, and I kind of talked to her at a networking meeting that I knew she'd be speaking at. And I had already sent her an email And I'd already had a recommendation from somebody at the Chorus radio station recommending that they talk to me, but I didn't hear anything back yet. So I kind of sat behind her at a networking meeting, and I didn't pounce on her or anything. But no, I mean, I said, did you get my email? And so that sparked a conversation. Now, they didn't pick up the show, but I found out why. It wasn't because my show was terrible, but it didn't match what their values were at the time and what they were looking for. And quite frankly, traditional TV's got to be careful these days. They have to put the money into programming that gets them immediate success, that they know that they get immediate success with their audience. They know their audience really, really well. So they know what their audience wants more of. I was doing a paranormal show. They wanted house and home renovation. Didn't work. So I would say research the trends, research the format, research the broadcast people, talk to the people, build relationships with, don't pounce on them at networking meetings, just saying. But it really is about talking to the people. They're just people. Honestly, same with the person that I dealt with initially at Bell when I did Very Fit. I approached him with messages and said, here, this is something that I would love for you to take a look at and love for you to take on. And he's like, well, honestly, I have somebody in the area that's already doing that, and it's not local enough. Had I asked that question before, I would have tweaked things a little bit. I still could have made what I wanted to, but I would have made it a little bit different if I really wanted that platform. Now, Rogers picked it up, E360 TV picked it up. So, I mean, I still had two places that it was shown. So I was happy.
Nice. Now, when you're planning out your show, something I also wanted to ask is, how far in advance do you have to figure out your show? Like, do you have to essentially have written your entire season and figure out all the episodes? Or is it like, okay, we'll start with X number of episodes and then go from there?
You got to know everything. And don't get me wrong. So you got to know everything, but also be prepared to pivot. Because for Very Fit, I had people that on the day that we were going to shoot, they forgot. And they're like, we're in the middle of renovations. I'm very sorry. And so it's like, so now what? So, I mean, it's very quickly, you just got to keep going. I mean, you cringe in the moment, you swear a little bit, and then you just keep going, and you never go back to that place again. You boycott in your own way, I'm not one for revenge, but it's but anyway, so it really is, you just keep going. But yeah, have your whole show, all your episodes, every single one mapped out before you even start. It helps you, it helps everything, because you can start thinking about it and thinking about who's going to be on it and how to make it better, and you just get ideas and create, and there's just there's a lot of fun in doing it that way. I find I guess maybe because I'm a planner, but I know that when you're pitching, you have to have everything ready. Every single episode, they want to know that But even when when I created Messages and Third Eye View, we shot Third Eye View in 2 days. So it was 9-10 hour shooting days. And I went to Kawartha Lakes. I took my friend, Bob Minhas, and he helped me. He was on one camera, I was on the other camera. We had guests moving in and out of this place, and it was just like one after the other. We had half an hour food break, and it was wonderful. I had so much fun. But honestly, and the hosts of the show took on the booking of the show, because those were people that they knew. So that, thank goodness, was not something that I had to do. I still had to sculpt it all out, but it was nice to have somebody to partner with a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, what's funny is the more you explain to me about how you approach these shows, it reminds me a lot of how you might want, well, how some people typically go with their like content, like online content, especially YouTube videos, because you're talking about batching, about shooting multiple things at the same time, which makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, it's hard to do with Barry Fit because you're working on everyone else's schedule, but Third Eye View, shot for 2 days, everything is done.
Yes. I couldn't quite do that with messages, though. I wish I had been able to. We had 10 episodes and we shot that like 10 times. It was only because of the scope of everything that if I knew now, no, you know, if I knew then what I know now. But it was a lot of work. The messages, even though it was just it seems like just a talk show. My host, Kelly Benoit, it would drain her to be reading some people for 3 hours. And that's what it ended up being. Each reading was about 20 minutes on the show, but it was way more than that. I had to cut it. Well, it was about 25 minutes to half an hour. And then I pared it down to 7 minutes in post edit. But then I had, you know, the experiences afterwards. So we were there for a good, I'll say 5 hours. So it was draining for my host. So there was no way we could batch that one, which is, you know, you do what you gotta do. I was so happy. Like, honestly, you shot some of my messages. Thank you so much. And honestly, I was so lucky in people helping me make these shows. I can't even tell you. Kim Vidya of Vidya Veggie Gourmet, which is in Thornton, and they have an amazing restaurant there. But she allowed me to shoot in the back of their place, which was wonderful, with the open space and the fireplace. And honestly, I don't know what I would have done without that space. And you know, you and Billy Dunlop and friends like Sandra Record, like, people came in and helped me without asking for anything in return. And I honestly, I wouldn't have been able to make it without anybody else. So you also learn how to have fun with people and accept help and co-create, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So something else too, because I remember we've spoken about this a little bit in the past too, is when you're producing a shows, especially nowadays, I believe there's a certain sort of expectation as to the style, the editing, how fast the cuts are, or stuff like that. So could you go over what's the expecting sort of style? How are these shows supposed to look in the end?
That's a really good question. And that comes in the research of your platform that you're going to be using. So the trend right now, and I'm sure it will change in the years to come, but the trend right now is very quick cuts. It's very quick, fast paced. Generally, they were only looking for 12 to 15 minutes of finished product. But I'll tell you, in that 15 minutes, we got three segments in that. So we went to 3 different places for 15 minutes of finished product. So they want fast paced, and they want informative, and they want graphic laden, and they want social media engaging as well. So there's a lot of things that it looks like at the end that matches the platform that you're on. Now, that said, YouTube, if you're looking to grow your channel, that doesn't work so well. It really doesn't value shorter clips. It values longer clips because you need longer watch times. So it has a lot, as you know, right? So better on YouTube is to kind of have a rambling talk show that gives you the ability to, but see, for me, I can't even do that for YouTube because I wouldn't watch it. I only make what I would watch. And if I don't find it entertaining, or at least try to be entertaining, you know? But for now, the trend, honestly, very graphic heavy, very quick cuts, multiple angles, still high production. They still expect high production, which you wouldn't think, right? Because it's like, oh, well, everybody's doing it. They are doing it. I mean, 5TV1, my second season, I had to get a 4K camera because they started doing all of their shows in 4K. Everything was in 4K. Wow. It's like, what? There's not even 4K cameras or 4K TVs out there yet. But that was their thing. So researching ahead of time, knowing what platform you're going to put it on, that will tell you what your trend of, or your format of your show is going to look like. Watch lots of them to see what they value. And quite honestly, call them on phone. Say, hey, if I was going to make a show, or would you be interested in this show? Or what kind of show would you be interested in? And they will tell you. I mean, I've had great conversations, and they know what works with their audience and their format. So, yeah.
If someone is looking to create their own show, where would you suggest they go to distribute that, and how would you suggest they approach somewhere like a broadcasting company or something like that?
So broadcasting companies. So if they, are you asking if they have their own equipment and they want to produce it themselves, or are they looking to have somebody else produce their idea?
You know, that's a really good addition as well. Could we explore both of those? Because I know like you've done sort of a bit of both, like Messages Beyond, you kind of self-produced, and then Barry Fit, you teamed up with a broadcasting company. So how would you approach either of those?
If you don't produce something and you want to sell them something, then you would go to their websites. So let's go to the big guy. Let's go to Netflix. So everybody says, I got an idea for Netflix that would just like be over the moon. And that's all they got is an idea. So they don't have anything else, in which, you know, bless their heart, I understand. Like, it's like, you got an idea. Well, just know that Netflix doesn't talk to anybody on a lower level. They talk to production companies that produce for them. Entertainment One, and I'll just give them as an example. They are one of the biggest producers for Netflix in our area. They have an office in Toronto, and you can pitch them an idea. But I have to tell you, and this is a sad fact, very likely ideas get just put on a cutting room floor. You know, they're usually doing their own productions. They don't have time for new ideas. They're invested in the things that they're invested in. And if you're not somebody that is, and I hate to say this because it's really terrible, noteworthy to them, if you're not of value to them, if you're not celebrity, if you don't have a big audience, if there's, you know, if your idea is all you got, it's very likely that it's not going to be seen. Now, it might be seen if you make a connection with somebody at that company, or you know, a camera person that works at that company, and, you know, you strike up a conversation. You can go to LinkedIn and see who works there, and maybe follow them. It could be, it's a long con, right? I hate to say it. It really is finding somebody in that company that has your ear, and then finding out about that company, and doing that with lots of companies, and researching all of those things. So if that's what you want to do, if you have an idea and you just can't get it out of your head, approach a production company that works for a broadcast. So Ant Productions, I think Ant Media is also, they work and produce for Chorus, who has Oprah's TV, or what is it called? Sorry, what's Oprah's? OWN sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Chorus has OWN. They have Disney. They have so many. Like I can't even like probably 50 channels that they have for. So Ant Media, they are one of those production companies that they will take their productions because they take them because they know what the production value is going to be. They already have a contract with them. They know what to expect. And so if you want to put something up, then get to know and understand these other production companies, and that's probably the better way to go. Now, if you're going to bootstrap it, you have, just like yourself, you have your equipment, and not only, James, do you have equipment, but you have people that you can reach out to build a team with, right? If you were to, and I don't know who you really, like all of the people that you have in your repertoire, but if you could find somebody that does have a connection with, and this might be a key if you're looking to produce for a larger traditional broadcast, then find somebody that's done it before, that they know the name of, and you can go alongside of them. And this is where partnering goes really well. If they know that the name, they know the work, they know the expectation of that person is, they're more likely to make that agreement with you because it's by association. So if you do have the stuff and you want to do it that way, by all means, if you want to do traditional, that's probably the best way to go. Then you can have them pitch it. They know how to pitch it because they've done it before. It's the best way to go. Now, if you just have a show in you, like I did, Messages was that show for me. I'm like, I'm just making it. I don't care where it goes. I'm just going to make it. And I really loved it. And I really loved making it. And I'm glad I did. And it was one season and boom, bada boom, right? And then, I made it, and then I got to find a place for this. Like, I feel so bad. I need to have somebody, kind of somebody's eyes on this because of all the people that have been involved. And so I did it backwards. But if you want to do it that way, do it that way. If and I don't mean to, Rogers is somebody that will take on a show if it's got a production value that is equivalent, it's a good lighting, good sound, a decent editing, fairly fast paced, and within their traditional 22 minutes of a half an hour show or an hour show, they'll take it. They'll take it, and they have their people that they will, if you have sponsors, you can send it right to them. Now you get a percentage of those people that come to them. But it's percentage, and it gets aired. And quite frankly, I have Barry Fit and Messages keeps popping up on Rogers. I have people, and I think Barry Fit was like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. I still have people going, "Aren't you that girl?" I'm like, "Oh God, hi." It's a strange feeling, right? But they'll, and especially, and it has to be a local flavor. If that's the case, it's got to be a local flavor. But, if you're going to, again, if you have the equipment or if you have people that will help you produce it, the broadcasting, the streaming broadcast channels are always looking for content. E360 TV, I met by fluke. I knew somebody, and they are more than willing to take a good production. And, you just have to make sure that it matches their tone. They're a very out of the box production company, and they have two parts of their company. One is very corporate, and that's not E360. And then E360 is a very out of the box. So that's where my paranormal shows fit in really nicely.
You mentioned that. I think it's kind of important for everyone to wrap their head around, especially if they're in that sort of beginner independent stage. Because I certainly know I had to figure this out along the way too, and that is, you know, if you're trying to approach a production company, broadcasting company, whichever, and you're like, oh, I have this great idea, I know it's going to be fantastic. I hate to burst people's bubble, but you're like 1 out of 100 people that said exactly the same thing that week or that day. I remember I had the privilege of going to a special meeting or something like that in the city, and there was this one producer, and before the meeting, it was just him and I in the room, so we had a good chat, and he was saying to me that he literally receives like, I think 40 different scripts on a daily basis. Like, he was saying to me, like, in a week I could fill up this entire room with scripts.
Yes, exactly. It's like a dog eat dog world out there. If you don't have a, but this is the best part. If you've got something that you can complete, and they can act like they can buy it from you, as long as it meets their criteria and they've already kind of given you a yay. It's, yeah, but you're right, having a script and saying, here, can you pay me to make this?
Yeah, and the same with when you mentioned about having notoriety, because like, for those that are listening, you have to remember these people also need to make money. It's not just fulfilling your grand dream. As much as that's fantastic, and I'm sure there are tons of great ideas, you have to remember they do have to make money at the end of the day. So it's going to be good quality. Are people going to watch it? Are you going to bring a lot of people to go watch it? Are sponsors going to want to sponsor it so that everyone makes money, etc., etc., etc.?
Yes, and I believe if I was going to do that now, I mean, the first thing I would do is take a year and build an audience. I would build the biggest audience I could I would stand on my head every day to build an audience, because that is your value. Honestly, if you're bringing an audience, and that doesn't mean just to like traditional broadcast. We're talking, if you're going to get a YouTube channel, and you're starting with one person, and you're trying to get it going, I'll tell you, that is not easy. It happens, but it happens over time. And so you have to build that audience. You either build it yourself or borrow one.
Because I was just thinking about, like, I'm certain that someone's going to watch this and be like, oh, I have an idea, I want to approach other people. It's like, well, that's great. Now think about it from the other person's perspective. And again, as you said, they are looking for content. A lot of these companies, they want content, but a lot of times it would be great if they had content that they did not have to make. They could just put it up online.
Acquisitions is what it's called. So if you're ever looking to sell your production, you would look for acquisitions in a company. So Bell has acquisitions, Chorus has acquisitions, and there's a certain division just for acquisitions. So they would be the people to talk to if you have a production that you already have done and you're looking to sell it.
I want to know, what have been, in your time of making all these shows, what's been some of the biggest challenges you've ever faced? And on the same note, is there any advice that you would offer to, let's say there's someone out there that's in the beginning stage, that wants to start their own talk show or reality TV show, much like Barry Fit or Messages. What would be some of your advice for them?
My biggest challenge was that I was the only one responsible in the creation of the production. And for me, there was so it's twofold. I was the only one responsible for creation, which is a heavy load on one person's shoulders to be, figuring out all the hats. But also, I didn't have someone to sell the sponsorships. If I was to do this again, and I tried to do it with Third Eye View, but it didn't quite work, and then I let it go. But so I would partner with somebody that is also creative, but creative in a different way, and has different strengths than I do. so you can play off one another and you don't feel alone in it, and you motivate each other. I feel like, creation is really one of those things that is co-created. You either co-create it with the guests, or I feel like co-creation at the top level is really, really important for myself. So yeah, I struggled with being the only one in that place, and I struggled with selling sponsorships and that kind of stuff, because I'm the creator. I don't like asking for money, man. I don't know. I feel like that's just so far from the creation part for me. But I'm fine with somebody else asking for money for it. I just, it's too far apart roles for me to be able to produce. So that was, I feel like that was my failings. Okay, and advice. Oh, well. So on that, I'd say find a partner to share your production with. Have someone in place to sell the ads. Okay, so again, know the platform that you're creating for. So reverse engineer. So if you have an idea, go find places where you would want to put them at first, and then start that way. That way it's so much easier to create your idea for that platform and it to be accepted by them. Have the large audience. I think that's it. Beg, borrow, or steal a large audience so that you have them in place before. And provide value. That's another thing. Provide value to the people that are sponsoring you. I guess that's really what it is. And that's really it. Create and be good.
You know what's funny? When you mentioned about the challenges of doing the logistics versus creativity, because that's something I'm finding a lot too, is that pretty much everyone wants to do creativity. I mean, that's the fun stuff. That's art. But in just my own opinion, if you're listening to this and you're like in the beginning stages, just figuring stuff out, I think everyone should tap into logistics. Like, there are rare breeds like myself. I genuinely love logistics. I love doing the producing. I love scheduling. I love organizing everything, and essentially it comes down to strategy for me. Is just strategizing how everything can just magically come together in place and just everything works out, or at least there's a plan for something. I think everyone should at least tap into that, because at least it gives you an understanding of, okay, so this is how this is what it actually takes to produce a show. So even when you do collaborate with another producer, another company, you kind of have an idea what they're dealing with, which means you can do what you can to make their job easier and more beneficial.
Absolutely, James. I'm totally with you. I am like a strategizer and a planner, and I love it, and I love doing it with other people. And yeah, you're right. The creation part is, it's nice and light and fluffy, but it really is the strategic part of it that is that crucial mid-level that puts it into a play, right? You can't have, it's the action that makes that creativity live, right?
Exactly. Well, again, thank you so much, Carole, for all that just fantastic advice. And by the way, if you want to follow Carole and check out more of these shows that she's produced and some of her future work, we have her social media and her YouTube channel linked in the description, and you'll see it at the end of this video. Again, thank you so much, Carole, for being on here.
Thanks, James. That was so much fun.
That really was so much fun. So I want to hear you guys. I want you to join me in the comments and let me know if you were to create a reality or talk show, what kind of show would that be about? What are your ideas? Start planning that out. Let me know down in the comments. If you got any value, please make sure you smash that like button and subscribe, because we got brand new videos coming out every single week. So good luck with all your shows and your productions, and I will see you guys next time.